Hello, and welcome to the Veggietales Reference and Easter Egg series, where I go through every single episode of Veggietales and point out all the references I can find. In the last part, we covered the first 10 episodes along with 2 Silly Song specials, and today we'll be cutting into the 2000s era episodes. If you haven't seen the last part, I highly recommend it. Not only do I explain my criteria, but there are a lot of cool Easter eggs you might find interesting. Anyway, let's pick up where we left off, with King George and the Ducky. So before we get started, I actually want to bring up some of the references I missed in the last part. The sun from the Grapes of Wrath makes an appearance as a nightlight on the countertop in Very Silly Songs, and a child's drawing of Veggietales characters can be seen in Archibald's briefcase in The End of Silliness. In The Toy That Saved Christmas, George has the same hood ornament as the grapes from God Wants Me to Forgive Them, which itself was a reference to the monster from Junior's room. And later during this factory scene, you can hear the Very Veggie Christmas version of Feliz Navidad playing in the background. The warning gate from this episode would later reappear on the front of the Larry cave in the Fib from Outer Space, and Larry would wear his pajamas from Oh Santa again at the end of Josh and the Big Wall. Lastly, a pattern based around Mr. Nezer's clock from Rack, Shack and Benny makes several appearances in the series. You can spot it on the pajama display in Madame Blueberry, on Larry's ice pack in The End of Silliness, on Dad Carrot's shirt in The Rumor Weed, and most fittingly on the 1998 VHS cover of Rack, Shack and Benny. Now onto the main event. King George uses Larry's towel from the Hairbrush song, only now it is purple whereas previously gray. A poster for The Peckening can be seen on the set for Endangered Love, The Peckening being the movie playing at the theater in Larryboy and the Rumor Weed. An advertisement for King George can actually be found in the next episode, Esther, along with several other ads. There's one for Lion Pizza, the brand from Dave and the Giant Pickle, one for Lenny's Caravan featuring Reginald from Jonah, which was 2 years from releasing, and one for the Stuff Mart which reads, "Going out of business, everything must go. 50% off, buy more junk," and accompanied by a picture of an air compressor. I find this last one funny as the Stuff Mart technically went out of business before they even opened, as the story takes place thousands of years before Madame Blueberry. Next to the King George ad, there's a missing poster for presumably 2 Big Idea staff members. I can't clearly make out their faces, but it could be Phil and Mike or some of the animators. Anyway, the text reads, "Missing, $100 reward if found." There's also this poster with ducks from King George, what looks to be another child's drawing, and a doorway recycled from King George. Lastly, there's the shot of King Xerxes playing tic-tac-toe, which I thought was a reference to Jonah, specifically Pirate Pa's hat, but the pattern doesn't exactly match. I even checked concept art for the movie to see if the pattern was changed, but no, it's consistently stayed the same. Moving along, Archibald references Jimmy and Jerry hosting a show in King George and the Ducky when trying to get permission to host a show himself. The divider he uses to change is the same one from that episode, and the theater from Esther reappears during Omelette. Now these examples are probably less Big Idea trying to make a reference and more them trying to conserve resources. And as the series continues, they do this more often. I'm going to try not to bring these up a whole lot unless it's something really interesting. Anyway, during the Silly Songs, we see Art Brigatti for the first time in person and not on his bowling plate. The sun from the Grapes of Wrath reappears, and there's a Nezer chocolate bunny on Larry's box of chocolates. We see a new variation of the Gorge gym shirt from Very Silly Songs, and it's being worn for the first time by a gourd. Lastly, the Scallion makes reference to him not having an official name.
"I've been around since show 1 and I still don't have a name."
Among the many shields on the Viking ship, you can spot a Larryboy themed shield at multiple points in the episode, and Lyle can be seen carrying around his pot holders in a bag from the Stuff Mart. In this Silly Song compilation, we return to the pirate set from Very Silly Songs and see Lunt, Pa, and Larry back in their pirate attire. There are no major changes to their outfits, although Pa's hat now has a smiley face rather than a skull and crossbones. When they reach the Water Buffalo song, Pa refers to it as the grandfather of Silly Songs, referencing how it was the very first Silly Song of the series, and Lunt references the Forgive-O-Matic from God Wants Me to Forgive Them, and its lackluster reception by the fans.
It sure beats the Forgive-O-Matic.
A newspaper in the Star of Christmas has headlines reading, "Local Man reads story of Jonah and Whale," and "Talking Vegetable Hoax," the former referencing the Jonah movie which released the same month as this episode, and the latter being a subtle nod to the show itself. Cavis and Millward's office is decorated with some interesting objects. We can spot pictures of Bob, Larry, Jimmy Gord, one of the French Peas, and Miss Agnetha, one of Spen, Otar, Olaf, his wife, Harold's wife, and Prince Omelette from Lyle the Kindly Viking, this picture of Larry from the Veggietales road trip calendar, There's Pirates of Penzance poster which features Larry, Pa, and Lunt in outfits nearly identical to their Jonah appearances, and these figures of Zidgel, Midgel, Fidgel, and Kevin from Big Idea's other show 3-2-1 Penguins. On this pillar, you can make out an ad for Uncle Blob's Amazing Carnival from episode 3 of 3-2-1 Penguins, as well as an ad for Lyle. The mugshots for Cavus and Millward contain the birthdays of the creators. July 8th, 1966 is Mike's, and June 16th, 1966 is Phil's. And Millward can be heard playing the What Have You Learned song in the jail cell.
I just wanted to teach London to love.
In the wonderful world of autotainment, all the songs featured come from various Veggietale albums. Hole in the Bottom of the Sea, Modern Major General, and Erie Canal come from Pirates' Boatload of Fun. You Are My Sunshine comes from Bob and Larry's Backyard Party. Zacchaeus comes from Bob and Larry's Sunday Morning Songs. And My Day comes from Junior's Bedtime Songs. Rusty and the Ventrilomatic, rather than being original characters like I initially thought, actually hail from 3-2-1 Penguins. We see another Penguins reference with this picture of Zidgel in the Hole in the Bottom of the Sea. Other interesting pictures include this one of a Laura costume with Joseph Pulich and another staff member, this one of Lyle, and this image from the Jonah movie. Also from the Jonah movie, this pair of underwear in My Day, and Pa's pirate outfit in Erie Canal. Next episode, the His Cheeseburger elevator theme makes a comeback along with Seymour from the Star of Christmas.
Bob, you Bob, they can't do a Western this time. Bob, I can prepare. I need the Bible. Jingle, jingle, jingle. Look, it's ringing.
Slushies also make a return sporting a new cup design, and so do the Go Fish cards and Moby Blaster from Jonah. In the jail, which recycles elements from Star of Christmas, you can make out several wanted posters for Big Idea staff members. There's Joseph Pulich as Crazy Joe Sapu, David Pitts as Davy the Pitts, Tim Lannon as Laughin' Lannon, Chuck Vollmer as String Bean Vollmer, and Michael Spooner as Spoons McGraw. Additionally, there's a Charles Pincher poster, also from the Star of Christmas, and one for Honcho Villa from 3-2-1 Penguins. Also, Joe and Bob make a quick reference to the show's closing line.
Just another way God made me special.
Yeah, and he loves you very much.
You'll notice that the food being put into the silos are bags of Mr. Twisty's Twisted Cheese Curls from Jonah, and the pizza given to Benjamin has quarters from King George on it. In this episode, we see Cavus and Millward working in Nezer's factory, which was mentioned at the end of Star of Christmas. During Nezer's song, he mentions both chocolate bunnies and a chocolate factory, a very obvious reference to Rack Shack and Benny. You can even spot a figure of the giant bunny in his office. When hearing the church will be torn down, Reverend Gilbert faints, which is a reference to Dad Asparagus fainting in The Fib from Outer Space. In the church, you can hear the What Have You Learned song playing on the organ. You can also hear the melody to Away in a Manger play a little later. While not a song exclusive to Veggietales, Away in a Manger was featured on the Very Veggie Christmas album. And this picture in Reverend Gilbert's living room is of the cottage from 3-2-1 Penguins. These next couple episodes are fairly light in terms of references. This episode shows Larry returning from Danish immersion camp, which he left for at the end of Little Joe. When the creator hangs the Little Snoodles painting, he does so with a Bob and Larry Bagdad, and the brand name of the refrigerator is Philco, yet another reference to Phil Vischer. Ludwig's fanciful flannelgraph might possibly be a reference to Melvin's flannelgraph from King George the Ducky. However, the connection doesn't go any further than both episodes having flannelgraphs. And in this crowd shot during the story of St. Patrick, you can spot several Big Idea staff members. In Babysitter in Denial, a Larryboy cap can be seen among the gifts for Moses, and later you can spot a poster with a snoodle in Miriam's room. The latter half of this episode is a prequel to King George the Ducky. There are several mentions of the Pie War from that episode, and King George's castle can be seen in the storybook. This episode also ends using the same Bible verse from King George, Romans 12:10. Although the New International Version is used here rather than the contemporary English version. And with that, we are halfway through this era of Veggietales, but still have a ways to go before getting through everything. If there were any references I missed, let me know and I'll include them in the next video. And if you haven't seen the previous part, I'd appreciate it if you give it a watch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed and I thank you for watching. Bye!